Right. All right. We're going to start our next panel here. And we've got five esteemed VCs. And we're going to be trying to share some wisdom here from lessons learned, that our panelists can share with you about how to optimize the VC experience. Why don't we start off and kind of quickly give an introduction?
My name is Thibaut. I work for the VC arm of XDC Network. So it's L1 EVM, focused on RWA and payments mostly. I've been working for the ecosystem for the last 2.5 years now, and it has been interesting to see the growth of the network. We had good momentum in the last few months because of our focus, and right now we are in the middle of actually helping to develop our DeFi ecosystem, so which should be very interesting and exciting in the next 6 months. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Oh my God, that's so loud. My name is Laura Cornelia Namedinova. I'm Chief Ecosystem Officer at Gate.io and Principal at Gate Ventures. And Gate Ventures is the venture arm of Gate.io Exchange, where we invest majority of our prop capital into early stage projects, usually seed, pre-seed. Our tokens range anywhere from a couple $100K to a couple of mil. And we're mostly excited about infrastructure, DeFi, payments, stablecoin, PayFi. And yeah, happy to be here. I love how huge the audience is.
Hi everyone, I'm Ivan from Uvicon VC. We are a venture studio and accelerator based in Hong Kong, mostly focused on pre-seed and seed stages, pretty agnostic in terms of the direction.
I'm based in Dubai. I've been Bitcoin miner since 2020. We recently announced Sigma Capital. It's a Cayman regulated fund, $100 million fund. So I have been personally investing since 2020, invested in more than 250 plus projects. In Sigma, we will be investing in liquid investments and venture arm, and a part of it would be a fund of fund.
Hi everyone, I'm Tess Howe, founder of Tess Ventures, a Silicon Valley, San Francisco VC fund. We've been investing in Web 2 classic investments for the last 15 years, and Web 3 the last 10 years. We were early investors in Kraken Crypto Exchange, later went on obviously to be early investor in Eigenlayer, in Animoca, Saga XYZ, a lot of these other amazing founders that we're very fortunate to back. Our thesis is we're sector agnostic, stage agnostic, because we have a global network, so we invest globally. Our sweet spot is the early stage, and we all, 10 of us, are founders first. We're all founders that either have, myself started a company, sold a company, then spent 2 years in Silicon Valley at Stanford, focusing on how to add value to founders to be a great venture capitalist. And we've currently focused the last 3 years a lot on Web3, AI, the convergence of that. We've been investing in a lot of AI agents, and recently started my own Web3 AI company called Joinable.ai. We focus on Web3 AI and the intersection of robotics. Thanks.
Okay, let's start off. The Web3, you've been doing it 10 years. I think everybody's got quite a bit of experience here on the panel. This market evolves so rapidly. It changes so rapidly. How would you describe kind of where the market is today for venture?
So I think now, on our side at least, we're looking more at projects with real utility and with a base of users as well. I think the time, and 2 years ago, we had a lot of pitch deck where it was just ideas basically on the paper with no traction, no community of users. So yeah, it's I think the market is maturing in that sense. We're looking for more applicable solutions with a real problem being solved. So in that sense, I think it's very healthy for the ecosystem.
So the market is actually very interesting because on one hand, everyone is still living in those fantasy days of 2016, 17, where you can have like half-assed done white paper and some kind of website, and you would raise millions from VCs.
You got to admit, those were fun days.
They were fun days, but unfortunately, we're a little bit too late. And a lot of founders come in still having that vision. Plus, we had like Pump of Fun, a lot of meme coins being launched, and then we would see these articles of 16-year-olds becoming rich overnight, even though that's like 0.001%, and majority of people just get drugged and lose their money. So there is this awe and this excitement. But then on the other hand, there's very little liquidity in the market. Everyone was expecting altcoins to do well, to have altcoin rally. It never happened. We had the bull market of Bitcoin, and pretty much that's it. So then a lot of seasoned investors who are getting a lot of unlocks right now, they're sitting there and be like, why no one is buying my bags? Why there is no liquidity in the market? And there are many reasons why. And then we had the third thing, which is US, because in the end, stock market and Wall Street is controlling not just Web2, but they're having a huge, huge influence on Web3, and with tariffs, with all of the kind of problems that are coming from that part of the world. Again, people are very scared to invest, and there is not a lot of liquidity. If you were following the markets, I think like a week ago, gold reached all-time high. And what does it mean? If everyone is investing in gold, it means everyone is scared. So how does the market look right now? It's fragmented. On one hand, everyone is looking where to invest. There's a lot of VCs still with money and mandate to invest. But on the other hand, there are not a lot of projects to invest in. And then even if you invest in, you don't have enough liquidity down the line when the projects are launching to be able to exit your positions. So it's a very interesting fragmented market.
And exiting is actually a very important part.
I just want to add a very quick thing. Everyone expects VCs to be like these charity organizations, like to give out grants for founders to play around. But in the end, VC investment is a very high risk loan that you're taking. And if you default, you don't necessarily have to give the money back, but you're defaulting your reputation. So in the end, VCs are investing and giving you this loan to get those 10x, 15x, because that's the game it is. So if you want, a very easy loan to build your business, go to a bank, take it for like, what, 5%,
yeah,
and be happy. Whereas here, you're betting your reputation on the line. Sorry.
Yeah, I think in terms of the market, so I'm in the space since 2017, and before that I'm also like a serial entrepreneur. So working like from Web2 from 2010, and what I see right now is so market is getting really similar to Web2 space in terms of like VCs. So we don't see right now those crazy like VCs like in 2021 when people just were like buying the tokens like with discount and then selling them at like TG and listing. That's it. So right now VCs are more looking into the product and to the traction, so it's getting more similar to like Web2 and traditional venture capital space.
Yeah, so I would divide VCs currently into two structures. One is VC in the VC world, where you have traditional VCs and Web3 VCs. And when we talk about the VC investments, so let's understand first about the VC in the VC world. So blockchain investment VCs are fairly new. Like we are just 5 or 6 years old. Initially, tokens were usually launched in the fair launch. Like Solana launched on fair launch. You had Ethereum launching on the fair launch. The investment concept started, I think, around 2017 when you had 25% TGEs and the token used to come in 5 months with very low valuation, paid network, Bondly. There are many projects which have given 500, 600x on launch, 300 to 500x. The segment, when we talk about the VC segment, it's few $1 trillion, whereas the traditional VCs are like, I don't know the numbers, but close to $100 billion. So yeah, the traction for VCs currently for the Web3 investment is increasing. The segment is small, it's $3 trillion segment. Traditional world is more than $100 trillion investment. So there's yet to go more regulations to come for the VCs investment arms when we invest in projects, like if you are based in Delaware, Cayman, or any regulated place, but the projects are not regulated. So when you end up investing, you're investing on a guess on your analysis where the legal structure doesn't arise, like you can't sue them. Yeah. And when we talk about where VCs are now, it's a builder market. tokens have vesting of 1 year. So VCs are getting more matured, more concerned about the investment, looking at genuine return rather than aiming at 100x, 500x, or a big returns.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Since the 10 of us at Test Venture has been investing and building for such a long time, I would say, as I said last year, it's Web 2.5 now. And personally, I think founders that have experience building startups in the classic traditional world will definitely have an edge in Web 3. The current market, there's still some hype, but it's very different, as the rest of the panelists said, from ICO days into last cycle where it was NFT metaverse. This cycle is a lot about fundamentals, and the cycle coming up, I think the founders that have that founding team, that have the complementary skill set, will be the ones that have higher chances of success. And what does that complementary team mean? It does mean not just having Web 2 founders and entrepreneurs. You also need to find that expert who has built in Web 3, because Web 2.5 means you need to merge these core team members together and play to everyone's strength. Because if you saw in the past, the CEO, typically of a Web 3 company needs to do everything. They need to fly around to conferences, they need to build the relationship, they need to fundraise. However, at this time in space, there's a lot of people who've been experienced in the last few cycles, and you can find these team members, or if you already have these team members, make sure you understand the Web3 playbook, which is very different from Web2. Fundraising investments come from very different groups of people because there's a token involved. The traditional VCs cannot invest in token structured company unless their legal structure allows that. Now, you also need regulatory and compliance, insights, because the landscape is forever changing. So, for Test Venture, we also started Gaia Labs, which helps incubate, accelerate. It is a smaller batch every cycle, but companies
So if you're thinking about what single piece of advice, because there's so much that we can tell them. Let's see if we can do rapid fire, 30 seconds. What is the single best piece of advice that you can give audience members about raising from a VC?
Right. I think the most important one is make sure you have a very organized CRM, because everyone flies around to different conferences or go to different ones. You need to figure out which investors are still actively investing, and make sure you note that. And those who may not, because some VCs are in the process of fundraising. At Test Venture, we deploy all our own funds. Typically, our check sizes are $500,000 to $1 million, and we have the luxury of just helping founders out. Once we invest, we don't have to focus on fundraising for the VC fund. So make sure you're speaking to the right VCs.
All right, 30 seconds. Yeah. Next.
So I would say clarity and credibility. So that's very important, and you have to be good with the numbers, because you get one-time fundraising chance, not like a traditional VC where Series A, B, C. So you need to be more particular.
Love that.
Yeah, my advice is show the direction, and it should be not necessarily the direction like in money, but in some numbers, community, people, show that the product is really needed in the market.
I'm going to continue what I said before. Investment is not charity. So every second, every slide, every sentence you talk to investors should answer one question. How are you going to make money for investor? That's it.
That's clarity.
Yes, I will join your point actually. Just show us the traction. You have to show us that actually people are using your product. It's not about just showing a paper, or a deck of 16 pages. It's really about numbers now.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's shocking to me when traction is on the 15th page. Right? If they have tractions, they could start with it. Okay, we talked about what your single best idea. What do you think is the most common mistake that you see that you just go, oh my God?
Focusing on a token launch, for example. I think that's the last thing I want to hear on my side. It's about showing what the project is used actually by users.
And just I mean, not to push back at all, but right, what's super interesting about that is how many VCs, like that's the only thing they care about.
How many VCs like that?
Well, about the token generation, like when's the token generation, right? That's a lot of VCs, that I think is their primary question.
Maybe it's changing. I would hope so.
The biggest mistake is founders not being very honest with yourself. Where are they as a company? If you're ex tier 1 founder who were in a founding team of Polygon, you can go to Pantera Capital tomorrow and they will make you coffee and they will ask if they could kindly get a location to your cap table. Whereas you're first time founder without any experience and you're going to tier 1 VCs, of course they're not going to care about you. Maybe go to accelerator first, find some angels. So understand where you are as a founder in the journey and then who is your target audience. And a lot of times I recommend, especially early stage founders without any kind of track record, launchpads, accelerators, or just angel investment is going to get you much, much further down than VCs.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake for the founders is that they really love their projects too much. So as Laura said, like VCs, they actually don't care about like your project, they care about the exit strategy and how they make money.
So I would say the biggest mistake a founder make is thinking VC to be idiots. You have to focus on.
I'm sorry, if you maybe move the microphone a little bit away from your
So
knees,
thinking the VC doesn't understand anything, focusing more on what you are building would be more credible than focusing on tokenomics and the numbers or competition for making money for the VCs.
Yeah, I think the single mistake what founders I've seen, I also do believe, everything that the panelists said is true, but it's also important to build a relationship with the VC. If we're talking about pre-seed stage where you can't show traction, I mean, everyone starts from that, right? And that's why our sweet spot is to focus on helping founders create something when it's not there yet. You need to show traction down the road, but in the early days, you also need to build that relationship with the VC. If you just pitch and you just talk about the technical piece, you also are not understanding that the VC or the investor needs to know what is the team formation, like who in the team is going to cover every area. So I think, the pitch that you have that 30-second or that 3-minute, 5-minute, or 30-minute with the investor, you really need to think carefully of, every sentence that is shared. Do create your own script and practice that. And that script doesn't mean it's a technical pitch, it's also that building the relationship pitch. And
so
I think
if you're thinking about pitching, what is, this is for all of you, what is the single best pitch you have ever heard? Go.
So, because we've been investing so long, we've seen so many. My time at Stanford, we discovered Robinhood, DoorDash, and I think, Robinhood's pitch was amazing. It was hard to believe, 0% commission, but they also essentially are the folks that started and understood the value of crypto. So that's why, this particular team really understood it. They said some bold statement that caught my attention. And, it was very disruptive technology. And the team was very young at that time, 1920, but we all took it seriously. And today, look at where Robinhood is. So that was probably one of my most favorite pitches.
Cool.
So for me, we were standing in a queue in San Francisco, and we met a project. I don't know if you heard about My Petoligan. So it was just 5 minutes, or mostly 30-second pitch. When the queue we were going around, it was fast that I have some IPs, crisp what they are doing and what they're looking at, and credible VC name. So that was the quickest and one of the best pitch, I would say.
Yeah, actually, I do believe that the best pitch is really not about like 15, 20 slides. It's about like 1-2 slides when founder can explain actually in couple of words what he's doing and why investors should invest in this. And I heard several pitches like this. Basically, this kind of founders, they say like, we will choose VC, who will invest, not like just we will allow everyone.
You know, you mentioned the pitch deck. How long would you suggest the pitch deck should be?
5 slides maximum.
Which is crazy, right? If you can't tell your story in 5 slides, you've got work to do.
So I'll give you a very good tip in terms of the pitch decks. You have to have 2 pitch decks. One pitch deck that you send around where someone has to just read, that has more details, more text, more specifics. And the second pitch deck you present. Means if you go to a call and it's something very short, 5 slides, where it's only key numbers. And never ever have it all in one. Because if you come on a pitch call and then you start reading from the slides, well, I can read it myself. So 2 types of text. And to answer your question, the best pitch is very, very short, 5 sentences maximum. Who you are, what are you building, what is your competitive edge in that specific niche or industry, what is your ask, and what is your exit strategy. If you have these 5 things very clearly, 1 sentence each, this is enough to grab attention for then to VC go in, have a call, ask you numerous of questions, but 5 sentences max. Another thing what I see founders do very, very poorly in events, they grab VC and then you start pitching them for 10, 15 minutes and I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't even remember where you started. Just tell me 5 sentences. If it's relevant for us, I'll connect with our due diligence team and we can go deeper. If it's not, let's not waste our time. Maybe there's another VC who you better be talking to than the wrong one.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, first of all, when you reach out to VC, you should identify which kind of VC you want on your cap table. I think that was a very good point. If you're into payment, you're not going to pitch a gaming VC, right? So when you reach out to those VCs that you have in mind, I think it's maybe like, it would be interesting to send first a blurb, like what exactly is your mission, who are your main competitors, what's the valuation you're asking, what's your USP basically as well. And then from there, I think you can send a more detailed pitch.
You know, I think it's helpful for them to get in the VC mind a bit. What would you say has been your biggest lesson that you've learned as a VC?
I guess it's all about execution. So when you go that first step and that second step of presenting your pitch deck, and as you guys said, I mean, at the end of the day, as bad as it sounds for you, I mean, for VC, it's an investment game, right? So we need to make money. So it's a huge risk for funds to put money on your project, and we have to see results down the line. So it's about execution, really, because the idea, it's nice to have an idea, it's nice to present well your idea, but you need a perfect execution. I guess Robin Hood.
Traction, what you said before.
Yes, exactly. We come back to the same fundamentals, right?
Everyone expects VC to be these people sitting on a throne and be like, you get investment, you don't get. When actually it's opposite. There are amazing founders that they are sitting on the throne and they're looking at VCs and be like, what is that value add beside the money you can give us? Okay, maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll give you like 50K allocation when VC wants like $500,000. So like, and then VCs in the same way are fighting to get access to the best founders to get on their cap table. And I recommend everyone who's building, try to be that founder. Be the founder who can choose which VCs are on your cap table who bring not just the money, because money in this space is easy. If you're building something, have these and you'll get the money, but who actually bring the knowledge, the connections, the know-how. That is the scarcity thing here.
So if they do that and they come to you and they say, why you? Why you?
Why us? Well, you know, when we're backed by one of the top largest exchanges, we have a lot to put on the table and help projects to launch in specific markets, give them better terms. So we're in a fortunate position here.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me is to invest in right people. So to look more into like the founder banker background, and especially into the relations between founders. Because I saw many companies that failed because of the founders' conflict.
Would you invest in a husband-wife team?
No. Yeah. I used to work with my wife before, so I wouldn't recommend
your
anyone.
Ex-wife or your current wife?
Ex-wife.
So The biggest lesson I would say is the cash flow, especially for Web3 founders. We have seen many projects, good projects dying because they didn't have a cash flow. You need to work out cash flow, at least have a cash flow for 2 years to sustain in the bull and the bear market.
Well,
And liquidity is important.
you said you know good projects that went out of business because they didn't have the cash flow.
Yeah, there are a few projects
What
that ran out of the cash flow.
So as a VC, if you look at the company, when do you start to get scared that they're going to run out of money?
Usually, the problem in VC is you don't get audited accounts quarterly. You don't have that access to the wallet. What you can do best is you can look at the wallets, but that usually money goes into later into the cold storage or somewhere. So it's important. I would personally see what is the cash flow monthly burning and how much fund they are raising. I personally feel there has to be a substantial amount of fundraise to sustain for 2 years to build up a good project. Like if you end up raising 3 to 5 million, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense for a project to run. You don't have Series B, C, or other series running out. I've seen project where CEO or CFO have ran out of the money. There are builders who have shut down the project. There are builders who have come back to the VCs talking to them. Hey, my CFO has went out of the money. We need support. I would name there was recently a good project where CFO drained out the money. Eventually, they were able to recover it, but they had come to the VCs asking them for the money, and VCs were ready to support them. So it's all about relationship and your cash flow.
The biggest lessons that we learned since the last 10 years we've learned from this. The first 15 years, we didn't quite understand it's a founder's, you're investing in the founding team because the market goes through different cycles. If you bet on and invest and support the right founding team, they're going to be able to iterate, pivot if need, and an A+ team can execute an A+ project, but if you're investing in a B team, they can't execute an A+ project, and it's not their fault.
So how do you know what's kind of the key thing for you that they're an A team?
Yeah, that's a great question. We think about that a lot, and we learn, through every experience where we made money or where that company failed. We try our best to, help and guide, but the key thing we say is look for that Avenger team. And what does that mean? You need one founder who's very good at the technology. You need one founder who's very good at fundraising. Oftentimes, it's the same person, but you need to try your best if you're going to scale this to avoid burnout, to avoid, being not able to scale globally, especially if it's a Web3 company. So I think the biggest thing is, you look for that, team, and then when you can afford it, and then you have other team members come in, someone really needs to be good at business development and partnership. That's the key. You got to have that complementary skill. And to your point, would I invest in husband and wife team? Yes, they've had amazing success. Not every team in that formation could make it, but you need to do your diligence.
Yeah, and sometimes I get divorced, I hear. But last question. This has been a great panel. Let's finish it up. What's the last piece of advice that you'd like to give folks?
Yeah, happy to share that. The market currently is hard. As a founder myself, who then turned investor, now founder again of Journable.ai, don't give up. These market that seems bare or low is the best time to build. You may need to be creative, and you may need to, cut some expenses, side gigs, etc. But if you really believe in what you're doing, once the market, becomes up and bull, it's an amazing time again. For those who are still in the industry, it's going to pay off. I've been in it so long through the ups and downs, so that's what I would say. It's encouraging to see those who are still here.
I would say focus on credibility and building. Failing while building a product is better than not doing and not delivering and failing. So focus on building up.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, keep trying. Because so if you really believe in your project and the project has users and demand, so finally VC will come. Second thing is try to make money. So try to sell. So try to fund yourself And then if you show this traction to VCs, so they will invest for sure.
Well, I will just say that, you know, everything's a question of balance. You know, I do think keeping on trying is, you know, a lot of sense. It's hard, but at the same token, you know, I actually think what the industry could use is a decelerator. You know, there are a lot of companies that really just should be shot and you know, put to death. And the great entrepreneur can go on and try something new. So knowing actually when to throw the towel in is also important.
2 advices. Number 1, think if you actually need a token, because 80% of token projects, and when they say they have utility, governance right is not a utility. And number 2, stop being so transactional. Like, don't expect everyone to help you out just because you're building. Build the relationship, give first, and then expect something in return. And stop mass DMing cold VCs. Hi, I have a project, can we have a call? Ask for the introduction.
Well, again, I'll push back just one sec. On the governance is not utility. I don't think governance can be the utility very often, but it is a utility.
Yeah, it's a utility that is nice to have, and no way it can actually be enough to sustain the token price and token usage.
Yeah, don't focus on the token launch, first thing. And the second thing, I agree with you, like just focus on making money, finding basically consumers. That's the first thing to focus on.
I don't know, Doge doesn't make any money, does it? And their token does okay. I said Doge doesn't make any money, so you don't have to make money, but that is the better way to do it. Let's give them a big round of applause. It was a great panel. Thanks.